I left the house at 4:30 in the morning to try to get a jump start, but that really wouldn't help me that much because the weather was pretty terrible. First stop on our day would be to stop at Union Cemetery in Ramsey, New Jersey, to stop by and see a geocache called Be Kind to Each Other. The geocache was placed by IMSpiders, which unfortunately also recently passed away a few months prior. The location is fairly unique. He has his spider carved into the headstone, and as a tribute to originally his wife, he actually has a hole drilled into the side of the tombstone where there's a bison tube for people to find. IMSpiders was well known in the community in the tri-state area for having 158,000 plus finds, which is actually pretty incredible considering most people only have like easily under a few thousand. This guy was dedicated and didn't wait for anybody. He ran around and found caches every day until he couldn't anymore. A short distance later would be the second stop in the Sterling Forest in the area of Tuxedo Park, New York. Their originally interest me was a large concrete tower that I passed the last time I drove past here. I did not know what it was, and under further investigation I found this related furnace. It is part of the Sterling furnace. Google Maps showed this enormous building that was probably 1,000 feet long on the hillside, and I couldn't see much here, but this was just an extra little thing. The most interesting thing to me would be this concrete structure. I had no idea what it was, and upon close inspection I would realize that it is probably a vertical shaft to the mine. My third and final stop along the way would be to stop at the Saugerties Lighthouse along the coastline. I had actually planned to come out here last time, but couldn't make the stop. It's about a half-mile trail down to the lighthouse, and it was really beautiful stuff. This is also where I realized that it's actually about 9 o'clock. And for some reason, it has already taken me 5 hours to get from my house to here. After all that, we finally arrive, and then we repack into a new car and head to the campsite. We start off the adventure with about 4 to 7 miles of hiking down the road to get to our site.
Stop. Stop very quick fucking physical. You did it. You started.
Once we get on this side trail, things get crazy. Everything is wet, and it's not long before all of us are up to our ankles in mud.
Don't stop. You keep stopping, we're never gonna get there. He's wearing sandals, shorts, no shirt. He has skin so thick the bugs can't bite him. On my fucking foot.
Oh my god.
Is Jesse gonna fall down? That's not helpful. He's gonna fall. That was nerve-wracking. So close. Lean to. This way. Aww.
I was so incredibly happy to find that we had a nice shelter at the location and that nobody else was there before us. Since we were all wet, the first priority was to get a fire going. And Joe spent what I'm pretty sure was about 3 hours with a flint and steel trying to get us a fire going. Meanwhile, I was completely exhausted and pretty much incapacitated with soaking wet feet, so I pretty much just fell asleep in the hammock during this time till late at night.
Let her kids' cats out.
Joe brought a fishing pole, and his goal was to catch us food to eat. He would spend nearly endless amount of time over the days we were here fishing, almost catching basically nothing. Thanks. On our last day here, however,
I just want to eat it.
he would catch us a fish. About a 4-inch long fish. That we then very quickly killed, cooked, and ate about a tablespoon of fish meat per person. We even managed to cook a box of rice the most primitive way physically possible, that I didn't even know you could cook rice this way. It was barely cooked correctly and it tasted like pond water. We were basically starving, so we swallowed the rice whole without even thinking about what it tasted like. Jesse decided, despite the weather being fairly on the cold side, that he wanted to go for a swim and swim out to the little rock in the island. Somewhere in between starting that fire and other things, Joe and Jesse built this monstrosity of a tarp house with hammocks and tarps, which is where they spent their nights. Keeping up the fire was pretty much someone's full-time job anytime it was running. In the absence of internet service and really anything to do, especially during the stormy weather, many hours were spent playing card games such as Rummy, listening to music, and pretty much just babbling to each other, passing the time. The next day, we would get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, pack everything up, and make our way out back to the road again. This was not as horrendous as when we approached, as we were able to take care and avoid some of the more disgustingly muddy areas. Coming for you. I'm coming for you. After the trip, we walked up to visit the main complex of Camp Santanoni. So this lodge or camp was built in 1893. In 1953, the camp was sold to the Melvin family, and unfortunately, in 1971, a tragedy occurred where 8-year-old Douglas Legg disappeared. No one ever knew whatever happened, and the Melvin family was devastated by the disappearance and sold the camp to the Nature Conservancy. They then sold the property to New York State. The camp has been mostly restored since the 90s, and the grounds are welcome to people to have primitive camping mostly year-round, and most of the time during the year you can actually come through and walk through all the restored structures freely. There's also a boathouse where you can take a few boats that they have just provided for anybody's use to go explore the lake. It's really quite a unique space, and we don't really get places like this in New Jersey, for sure.
Don't let me miss anything.
Danger, keep out. Seems to be a delicious tub. And this is a cupboard. Definitely a cupboard. For lots of cupboarding. There's an electrical box with 6 missing fuses. Many relics. The entire place actually has its own farm, creamery, and a bunch of other support buildings that they used to run the entire thing. And really, it's quite a large area, quite amazing. Oh my god.
Turkey doing?
This is actually an iron furnace for melting iron. It was powered by hot air bellows that were powered by a water mill, but more notably, it took 5 years to build it, and it only operated for a short period of time before the dam was damaged and it was no longer able to be operated. Near enough by is a small village of people that operated and lived in the operation, most of which all the buildings have been torn down and turned into interpretive sites, except for a few hidden.
So that means we're gonna go right in it. Oh no, we're not. Actually, no.
I don't. The two dilapidated buildings we would poke our head through here were known as the Terry Cottage, that was built in the 1880s by Alexander Taylor, and the small building next to this that we would pass would be referred to as the Lipstick Lodge, and that was built in 1933.
Bob with like 2 cameras in his hand, like.
Can't get enough of it. One of the last buildings we would look at on the way out was the Savage Cottage, which was built sometime after 1906. So, we stop at Peeble Island, which was the home of the Peabody and Company bleachery, which was built in 1909 and opened for operations in 1911. The company operated until 1972, of which the New York State purchased the island and created it into the state park that it is today. Mostly consisting of a walking trail and quite a number of scenic lookouts of the river. On my way back, I would stop at an interesting place I saw from the highway, the St. Joseph Church, located in Albany, New York. This church has a very interesting tale. It actually closed in 1994, was passed ownership back and forth probably like 4 times, was partially restored, opened back up for special purposes, then left to rot again for like 5 to 7 years, and sold to another person who was going to turn it into something, and that didn't work out. It got bought again or traded back to the city, and then as of recently, the church is actually for sale by the city of Albany for about $100,000. You can own this, although it's limited to a very few use cases: church, school, daycare, restaurant, etc. And whoever would buy this would probably have to put at least $100,000 in restoration. I didn't know if it was possible or allowed or reasonable, and I did not take the opportunity to go inside. Apparently it is not hard to get inside. And here's a few pictures from the real estate listing of the inside of the building. Looks crazy-tastic. On my way back, I would stop at just one more place: Sojourner's Truth State Park. I was expecting to see a 3-floor high concrete silo for storing materials out here. It was on Google Maps, but unfortunately when I arrived it had already been destroyed as part of the conversion to a park. They left this one building here completely fenced off that you could peek at, and by the time I got here it was like 5:30, almost 6 o'clock. It was a nice time, but I didn't spend too long here because I still had a good 2 hours drive home. Of course, this leads us to the part that I hate the most. The 2-hour drive back home. Here's a small bonus that didn't make it into the regular video. The world's biggest Walmart, 260,000 square feet in the capital of Albany. Also, a quick appearance of the Black Bear restaurant, which is the place we always eat at when we head through Pottsville. Also, extra credit for the fact that there was a logbook, which was also a geocache in the lean time.